coming up tonight. We may not be able to go to Cuba, but we'll get as close as we can as we visit Key West. Sit down with the cruise director to find out what it takes to entertain guests on this voyage, and take a look at Boleros, one of the main show lounges on board the Empress of the Seas. It's all coming up, so let's set sail. Welcome to day 2 of the cruise view from on board the Empress of the Seas. Today was Friday, October 11th, 2019, and our location, it's only day 2, but it was our first port of call. We didn't get a moment to rest on this sailing as we went straight to Key West on this voyage. This morning I got up about 6:30 a.m., could already see the lights on the horizon, some sunlight starting to rise, and by 7 a.m. I was out on the deck to see that arrival into port. We followed some buoys along a channel around the island, very similar to how the Bermuda arrival process goes, and we entered the channel at about 7:30 this morning. At 7:40 a.m. we were docking alongside the pier, and by 7:50 a.m. we were already tied up and docked for the day. A full 10 minutes before our scheduled 8 a.m. arrival, but the official all clear did not arrive until about 8:20 this morning. This evening, we then had a scheduled departure at 7 p.m., which meant an all aboard of 6:30. The ship started its departure at about 6:50 p.m. tonight, setting sail with the sun setting for a beautiful sight. And as we made our way out to sea, we had to do a full 180-degree spin before following that channel out again, reaching open seas about 20 minutes after starting to leave at about 7:10 p.m. A bit later, the pilot finally left the ship, and we got to see him pretty much the moment we passed the last buoys on the way out. He finally got off the ship and returned to the pilot boat to head back to Key West. As for the weather, we had sunrise and sunset to go along with those arrival departures. We had a sunrise this morning at 7:23 a.m., right along with that arrival. You could see it coming up over the island. And then this evening we had a sunset at 7:04 p.m., just as we were departing, giving a beautiful sight off the coast and along Key West shoreline, right along the pier. There were tons of people out for the Sunset Festival that happens every day during the sunset period. A lot of people out there to watch that sunset as we were setting sail. We had, for the most part, beautiful weather today. It was cloudy conditions according to the compass, but we didn't see too much of that. For the most part, it was sunny blue skies for the day. In the afternoon, we started to see some darker clouds roll in. It started to look a little bit ugly, but it never did rain the entire time we're in Key West. But the moment that we started departing, you could already see, looking across the island, that there was some rain in other areas, but not at the port itself. As we headed out to sea, we passed that long band of clouds that included tons of rain and passed straight through one of those showers on the way out. But the positive of those showers was it did create a beautiful sight during that sunset, with the colors shining on the sky with those rainstorms falling down to the sea. And with such beautiful conditions all day, it was of course a very warm day. We had a high of 85 degrees, and this morning as we sailed in, as well as tonight as we're sailing again, we had calm seas, but a wind of about 9 miles per hour. This morning it was very windy when we were pulling in. This evening the wind is going in the same direction as the ship, so we are not experiencing too much wind up on that top deck. The funnel at points even has the smoke going in the opposite direction of the ship, so it's certainly a very calm night tonight with that wind blowing out there. We do have a top story today, one that was actually for yesterday, but with everything going on I chose to hold it back a day, and that was that after 12 years of searching, I finally got an Empress of the Seas ship model. Collect ship model on every one of these sailings for every ship that I've been on. There were a couple ships that I missed during a period where the Voyager of the Seas did not have them. Nordic Empress did not have any as well, and as did the Independence of the Seas during that transatlantic, where she did not have any on board. But working with Royal Caribbean, I was able to get both the Independence of the Seas and the Voyager of the Seas, but unfortunately by the time that was being taken care of. The Nordic Empress had already left the fleet, and it was impossible to get a new model ship for that since they were no longer producing them. She's now returned to the fleet. Those models are being produced again, and past few weeks I've been checking online. People have said there have been tons of models on board. Yesterday I walked into the shop as soon as it opened, looked around, saw no sign of those models, found one box sitting on the shelf along with 2 open models sitting next to it. And when I checked with the cashier to purchase it, she said it was the last model on board the ship. So I got very lucky. After 12 years of waiting, I got the final model available on board the Empress of the Seas. I'm sure they'll have more as they get a new shipment in, but for this sailing, that is the only one that they were able to sell before selling out, and that was the only one I needed, as after 12 years I finally got the Empress of the Seas added to the collection. So moving on to our compass then, we had a long day this morning getting up early for that arrival. I then immediately went to the Windjammer once we were docked at 7:50 a.m., got some breakfast there, and compared to yesterday's lunch where it was very crowded, hard to move around, today's breakfast completely empty. There were empty tables all over. There were some people eating outside with their food, even though there were empty tables inside. It was very easy to get around, no lines anywhere. Super quick and efficient breakfast this morning, because I had to get off to an excursion. By 8:45 a.m. this morning, I had to be off the ship and on the pier to receive my tickets for the Old Town Trolley excursion, which is a hop-on, hop-off trolley that takes you all around the island of Key West. Features 13 different stops in various locations throughout the island. Gives you an overview of the island, all the history, stories, all the information you could be looking for as you travel around the island to see the various sites, and along the way those 13 stops give you an opportunity to get off and explore those areas. You can visit different attractions, get a little more up close personal with those areas than you do as you're driving past them. And for us, we took the opportunity, because you could get on and off as much as you want, so we took a complete lap around the island. It was about 80 minutes to do the full loop around the island. They were running those trolleys every 15 minutes. Once we got off of the first loop, we sat on the one side for that loop, got on another trolley, sat on the opposite side to take a second loop around, and that time we did take the opportunity to get on and off at a few different stops. Got to see the southernmost point in the continental United States, as well as took some time to just walk through Duval Street in a few areas of the island and skip over a couple stops to get a little more up close to those various shops and restaurants that are around Key West. So once we finish with that, it takes you right over to the port area so you can see some of the shops and the items that are around the actual ship itself, and that includes a Margaritaville resort directly where the port is located, and that is a full Margaritaville resort featuring the Land Shark and other traditional Margaritaville attractions, so you can spend some time in there. It is not like the Margaritaville and some other ports like Freeport where it's got the giant pool and everything that is free for everyone to use. It is a traditional resort, but it does have the dining venues that you'd find at a Margaritaville. That time it was one of those points where those dark clouds were coming over the port, so we did get back on the ship at about 2:30. Those clouds did not come, so it did not rain, but we still spent the rest of the day on board the ship at that point, taking in the sights from up on board the Empress of the Seas, looking out over the port, over the water, just taking in all the environment around the ship this afternoon. And that led to 5:30 dinner. Had to be getting ready for that in advance. This evening was day 2, typically the captain's night. They're finally listening, and they did not put the captain's night on a port day. Instead, it will be tomorrow, day 3, our sea day, that will have the captain's festivities all night long. Instead, today was just another casual dining day in the main dining room. So for me, I got a couple items that we've done on several sailings before. Once again, these menus are repeating. There are a few changes to the order of what's included and what falls in what day, but for the most part, these are items that we've seen on several other sailings. Today I started for my starter with the roasted poblano pepper soup, and that one, just like on the Ovation Seas, was very spicy. It wasn't spicy like that in the past. I'm not sure if they tweaked that recipe a little bit, because it was spicy exactly like it was on the Ovation Seas, and that was an absolutely delicious one. If you like a little bit of a kick, and it had a bit of a smoky flavor to it as well. That is a delicious one to go for. For my entree, I went with the chicken parmesan, which was an incredibly thin piece of chicken. And just like we saw that French onion soup yesterday, they did not go sparingly on that cheese. It was covered in a ton of cheese, a very thick layer of mozzarella cheese over the top of that chicken. And that whole thing was on top of a bed of spaghetti. For my dessert, I then went with the warm dark chocolate cookie, which came with some ice cream as well. And this one was different than what we've seen on some of the other ships, where the other ships have served it in a skillet with a cookie baked right into it, or in a square dish with the cookie filling it and more like a brownie as it was on the Ovation Seas. This time it was a square dish again, but it was almost like when it came to the table, it looked just like they placed a cookie that they got off of a cooking sheet, the same kind they're served around the ship. It was very deceiving looking, did not look very impressive when it came out, but as soon as I stuck a spoon in it, you could tell it was not just a traditional cookie thrown in a dish with some chocolate syrup over it. It was a very warm, gooey chocolate cookie. It was almost fudge-like, just like on the Ovation Seas, but it was a very small, clearly cookie-shaped one rather than brownie-like like it was on the Ovation of the Seas. So that was 5:30. Once I was done eating, I did run out of that dining room because from the dining room you could feel the engine start up right at 6:30. You could sense them preparing to depart for about 20 minutes till we ultimately did, but as soon as I saw that land start to move out the window, headed out of the dining room, got up to deck number 11. So I could see that departure today along with that sunset this evening. That lasted about an hour. At 7:45, the next thing on the list was then down into the Centrum. Each evening they've been doing a little event in the Centrum, a game in the Centrum for everybody to enjoy. Right in between the two shows. Tonight's shows were 7 and 8:45. So that meant that at 7:45 they stuck a game in the Centrum, and it was the Finish That Lyric game show. We've seen that on several other cruises as well. And like we saw last night, nothing is taken seriously on this ship. It is all one big joke, everybody having fun and enjoying the evening. And that is how this game was treated. Pretty much one big joke. Everybody was in it, nobody was eliminated, everybody was there to just have fun, and it filled the Centrum with a decent sized crowd for what the event was. And of course, more importantly though, it got a lot of audience participation. Whether it was won or not, it certainly got the crowd into it and singing along with those songs. And that was 7:45, lasted about 30 minutes until 8:15, a little bit past 8:15. Then I headed to the Royal Theatre because 8:45 tonight was production showtime starring Stephanie Parker. This was another one of the guest entertainers on board. Tonight was a Whitney Houston concert. So we've seen tribute acts, we've seen impersonators, we've seen all kinds of singers, performers come on board to recreate various artists. Tonight's certainly sounded like Whitney Houston. Was an incredible performance, but it was not designed to be Whitney Houston. It was meant, and she came around and said it, to be a fan performance of Whitney Houston, somebody that admires her and wants to do her right. And that is how it came off. It was certainly a little more laid back, more casual performance than some of the impersonator ones. A lot more conversational and just good cheer, having fun, telling stories of how she got to this point in her life. The fact that she was a performer on board cruise ships for 4 years before going independent as a guest performer on board them. Then of course include all the traditional Whitney Houston songs that you would expect to see, and really got the crowd into it, as you often see when you bring in those popular songs. From there, that was 8:45, lasted until about 9:30, headed straight across the ship to this venue I'm in right now, Boleros, because tonight from 9 to 9:45 was another round of karaoke. Caught about 2 minutes of that, but more importantly, 9:45 was the Battle of the Sexes for this sailing, featuring 2 members of the cruise director staff, team of 6 men, 6 women, going through a whole bunch of challenges just like we've seen on other sailings. They did a few different challenges than others. So they started this game with a round of paper airplanes, men versus women, going off in pair battles, see who could get the farthest and collect the most points. From there, they went into a balloon challenge, pass the balloon down the line, see who can get through all the members of the team the quickest, followed by a full-on men versus women challenge. Who could get the most men and women on the floor to win? Women won that round, unfortunately. And with the final round, the very traditional balloon popping challenge, as the members went through and popped those balloons, as we've seen on every sailing, the traditional grand finale to the competition. Like the other games that we've seen, though, it was men versus women. They were declaring winners each round. The women clearly won this day, unfortunately, but they did not officially announce the winners of this game. It was humorous throughout the entire event. The cruise director staff was focused on the comedy, making it fun. Guests made it fun. It was just an overall comedy-based event. Not as competitive as we've sometimes seen, where it's gotten really aggressive in the men versus women. It was really about the comedy and enjoyment more than anything, and that is partly why they probably did not declare an official winner, because so far they really haven't had winners of any game at this point. It's all been about the entertainment factor more than the competition for this sailing. So that was 9:45. Went a bit long, finished about 10:30. I then headed across the ship back to that Royal Theater, because at 10:15, missed the first about 20 minutes of it. There was a late night adult comedy show, once again featuring Mike Pace. As we saw him yesterday, he did have a lot of the same routine that we saw on the Ovation of the Seas. Tonight it was no different. A lot of the comedy did come from what we saw on the Ovation, but a lot of it was also interacting with the crowd, just as he had on that sailing. Going through, talking to various couples around the theater, getting to know people, making jokes around them, and building on that dialogue. And just like we saw last time on board the Ovation, at the end, he went through the entire room just touching base back with every single person he interacted with the show, which is, once again, probably some of the most fun parts of that show, just seeing it all come together at the end, and the way that he doesn't just make that joke about a person and move on, but that he's actually building that comedy with the people and remembering what he had done throughout the show to bring it back at the end. And it was more than just a joke in poor taste or about someone, but an actual joke with a person, and that is what makes the comedy a bit more funny than some of these other comedians that we've seen. So that about ended the night. That was a 10:15 comedy, went until about 11 o'clock. Not a whole lot else going on around the ship. There was some music and Boleros up in the Viking Crown Lounge, but for the most part, the ship went to sleep. Walking around, it's pretty empty at this point. The Windjammer is probably the most crowded place, more crowded than any of the entertainment venues. And it is a sea day tomorrow, so you'd expect there to be a little more late night, more people staying up without that port of call to get up early for, but it seems like most did turn in at this point. So moving on from there then, we do have our first interview of the sailing. Tonight, we're going to learn a bit more about the cruise director, Elvis Pinto. So today I am joined by Elvis, who is the cruise director on board the Empress. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, no problem, no problem.
So could you provide a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yes, I'm from Chile. I'm from South America. I was born and raised in a small town called Los Vilos, 2 hours and a half away from the capital, Santiago. I went to high school in that city, but then I moved to Santiago for college. So my degree is in tourism. I learned all the marketing revenue, as well of all the airport codes and so and so. Mm-hmm. So it was like a very interesting job. So I was looking for a job or a career that will take me, abroad, or outside my country.
Mm-hmm. So what led you to be interested in moving out to the sea?
I believe because I was looking for something different, something like a more like a big for me, Mm-hmm. My town is really tiny when we're talking about 14,000 people only. So then when I moved to the capital, I love big cities and the people and everything. So it's been great.
So how did you end up joining Royal Caribbean?
Through a friend of mine, an old friend. He came to Royal Caribbean many years ago, way before me, and then he commented to me, and then I looked for it. I went for some, searching for the job, and then I applied. It was through a hiring partner, and then they say, okay, no problem. So, and then I joined back in 2003 on the Sovereign of the Seas. I was there for 3 years, but I was working in the dining room, because back then you couldn't apply for anything else but dining room or bar staff. So I applied for the dining room. So I was assistant waiter for about 2 years, and then I moved to the cruise division for entertainment, let's say, on board.
So which ships in the Royal Caribbean fleet have you sailed on so far?
Okay, so I started on the Sovereign, then I went to the Brilliance, then Serenade, Vision, Legend, Explorer, Radiance, Oasis. I was on the Freedom, I was on Adventure, Majesty, Enchantment, and Empress. Yeah. I was on the Empress actually before it was sold to Pullman Tour. I was on the part of the last crew on board, and then a few years later I was assigned to come back here for the Cuban run.
Yeah. So the Empress of the Seas is the smallest ship in the Royal Caribbean fleet.
Yep.
What does that mean for the size of your team on board?
Well, I do have my Royal Caribbean singers and dancers that you were gonna see eventually on the stage. I have as well musicians, and I do have my tech team, my cruise director staff, my adventuration team taking care of the junior cruisers. So I do have about, I would say, almost 60 crew members or staff members under the cruise director on board.
So with Empress being a smaller ship, what kind of additional challenges does that create for you?
I would say the challenge is for many guests who've been cruising for many times for many years, and then they are part of the Crown and Anchor Society. So they come here and they see that we don't have all that. We don't have we don't have the aqua theater, we don't have the park, we don't have that, but we do have an amazing crew. And then being the smallest one as well, this ship was designed with a lot of windows and view to the owl, to the ocean, to the sea, or to the places that we're going to. So that's, you're gonna see it from deck number 5 and above, pretty much light everywhere, everything you can see through. As well, the venues are bigger than Boleros Lounge is the biggest in the fleet, as well the Schooner Bar, is the biggest Schooner Bar in the fleet, the piano bar. So that's one of the the good thing about this ship.
So the Empress of the Seas may be a bit smaller, but she has a lot of unique characteristics and elements to her.
Yep.
What makes her so special?
I would say being the smallest is as well give us the opportunity for us, the crew members, and for the guests as well, to be more like the one-on-one with each other. Example, you get to know the guest. I mean, I was on the Oasis class, and I know how it is. I mean, you run it all day long, and you're lucky if you see the guest twice or 3 times a cruise. In here, you pretty much bump into each other all the time, pretty much every single day, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Especially on sea days, you see everybody. So that make it better for us as well. I like that.
Yeah. When the Empress originally set sail 30 years ago, she was designed for those shorter 3-4 night sailings. Over time, she started doing more 7 and 8 night sailings. Right now, she's got a variety of lengths, from 3 nights to 8 nights, with potentially 12 night sailings coming up. How do you deal with that continuous variation in these cruises?
I would say you do have, the entire fleet. I've been around for quite a bit, for about 16 years, or almost 17. Wow. I wasn't in long cruises once again, and then I took many of those ideas to put it in place here as well. So you started for a 3-day cruise. You always have the 70s party, you always have the the Dancing with the Stars, but then you can start to add the Latin Fiesta, the 80s party, the 90s party, and so on. So kind of you start to create a program depending of the length. And of course, you have to read the crowd that you have. For a 12-day cruise, already you're gonna have probably an older crowd, so you have to put more indoor activities, like a trivias or a scrapbooking and things like that. Arts and crafts things for them as well. So I guess that's the main focus for us, to make sure that we know what crowd we're gonna get. And then we get that information in advance as well from shoreside. They let us know, okay, so this is your range of people that you're gonna get, this is the ages of the people or whatever, So when we have high count of kids, and then like you have to put a few activities that are more like a family-oriented activities too.
So the Empress of Seas, when she was brought back to the Royal Caribbean Fleet, it was intended to go to the Cuban market.
Yep,
As a
and
result,
we did.
Yep.
And we did.
Some of the entertainment is specifically designed to very nicely go along with that sailing itinerary. She's now sailing a variety of other kinds of itineraries. How do you adapt that product to still blend in with these itineraries?
I would say even though we went to Cuba, the ports of course were a little bit different, but the entertainment itself, being out of Miami, as well give us a lot of an international crowd. That means, like example, they still like the Latin music. They still like a little bit of salsa dance class, or they like Zumba. So kind of a few changes, of course, because we need to change all the talks that we do on board, seminars, or the orientation for the guests is a little bit different. And I know many guests are disappointed about the fact that we don't go anymore there, but it was a surprise for us as well. I mean, we were the last one to leave Cuba, because we were in Havana the day they decided to stop. So we had pretty much a few hours to say, okay, pack everything and go. So, but once again, I mean, being around Miami is a lot of people who still love what we have, because we have to remember, I mean, even the cruise, the Empress, the godmother is Gloria Estefan, who is a Cuban singer, so not living in Miami, obviously.
So on the sailing, we're going to get to visit one of Royal Caribbean's private destinations, a brand new Perfect Day at Coco Cay. Can you give a little bit overview of that?
Oh my goodness. I was there many years ago when it was just a tiny island, you have to tender, and then, but now, Perfect Day is a perfect day. I mean, you have everything in there, everything you need in order for you to have a great time. From entertainment, you have music, you have dance, you have good food, amazing food. You have the tallest water slide, in South and North America and in the Caribbean, the biggest pool as well in the Caribbean. So kind of you can do whatever you want. You can relax and do nothing, or you can just go out and about and and do the water slide, or go jet ski, or go just swim, and you have the bar, you have a DJ, and food is amazing.
So the day that we boarded the ship on Thursday was your birthday. How did you celebrate that on board?
Well, my team, 2 days before my birthday, actually they organized a little surprise party for me, a gathering with my team. That was amazing. I had a great time. But I believe you have to still focus on what you're doing here. You're still working, so you need to try to manage that area. I celebrate, I do, and I get in touch with my family, and talk to them on the phone, and a lot of messages, through the media, Facebook, and so on. So, but I guess you have to enjoy yourself, at the time, in the moment. People came here, decorate your office, or the office, and my bosses as well, happy birthday everyone, and announcement, and so on. So kind of it's interesting. You got a lot of attention, put it this way.
So what is next for you?
So far, being October, still don't know when I'm going next. I would love to go. I like to stay out here, out of Miami. I love Miami, or San Juan, Puerto Rico. Kind of those are my favorite home ports, put it this way. If they send me to Europe, of course, I'm happy as well. Europe is a totally different experience, different than the Caribbean. But hopefully I will stay in Miami or in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the viewers?
Nothing. I just I would like to say that Royal Caribbean is a very good company to work with, and then I'm very glad and very happy. It's been around for more than 16 years, and I see the company growing, and then it's going for more and better.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
So I want to thank Elvis for taking the time to talk to me. This course is a 7-night voyage on one of the smaller ships, which can have its own challenges and its own benefits. And we've seen so far in the sailing just how much the cruise director staff has been involved in everything that's gone on. Certainly a different style of sailing than we've seen on some of the other ships, the larger ships, and a lot of that is due to the style of the guests on board and the style of the ship itself, because the Empress is, of course, very different and unique ship in the Royal Caribbean fleet. And that is no truer than when you look at the other venues on board, the lounges. And that is where we're going to go with today's venue tour. We're going to take a look at where I am today, right now, in Boleros, as well as the Viking Crown Lounge. Two venues that are on other ships in the Royal Caribbean fleet, but certainly not in the way they are on board here. The Viking Crown was not a feature of the original Admiral Cruises Future Seas. Once taken over by Royal Caribbean, this signature feature was added to the design. The venue is located on the pool deck, Deck 10, just after the funnel. This venue is unlike other Viking Crowns as it's 2 levels with a large lounge in the base as well as a U-shaped overlook on the second level. Originally designed to be additional seating with a view, the second level is now home to the ship's gym. The bottom level still has views and a bar for a quiet place to sit during the day. Occasionally the spa or other small events may use the space to hold an activity. At night, the venue becomes the ship's nightclub with a switch to an adults-only venue. Directly outside the Viking Crown Lounge, in the back of the ship, is where the rock climbing wall can be located, the only true sports venue on board. Boleros is one of the newer signature venues that can be found on the largest ships in the fleet. The Empress of the Seas features its Latin vibe and name for the lounge on Deck 6. With a massive size of nearly 7,500 square feet, it's more than twice the size of any other Boleros in the fleet. Featuring Cuban-inspired images throughout, the venue was to be an immersive element of the Cuban sailing experience. This starts the moment you enter the venue, where a new Café Royal was added offering specialty coffees, including some Cuban-inspired ones, along with a selection of pastries in the morning, a Cuban food in the afternoon. As the largest gathering venue outside the Royal Theatre, it is often the location for activities including games, dance classes, and karaoke. So, while the Viking Crown Lounge is not used quite as heavily as it is on some of those other ships that we've been on before, Boleros is certainly used far more than it's been on any ship so far that I've been on. And we've heard it several times mentioned tonight. We'll see it the rest of the sailing because it'll be used every night of this voyage, I'm sure. But for now, that about does it for this episode of the Cruise View. Thanks for watching. Once again, I'm Picone, and stay tuned for the links.